Welcome to episode 38 of Edges and Sledges, our second last podcast for the year. We've got an exciting one and a lot to talk about today. We last spoke to you just after the Adelaide test, and a lot has happened since then. Of course, I have my co-podcasters with me, DJ in London, Ashwin in Cincinnati, and I'm in India this week for the holiday season. So let me start a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the Perth test, and I'll hand it over to both of you soon. But basically, for me, it was a bit of a different feeling to not to have lost an overseas test, but to have lost a test and been 1-1, right? For me, that was something that was unique. I don't think I've seen that for a long time. But India, after the strong performance we had in Adelaide, where we started the series off well, we kind of lost the plot a little bit on this one, and we lost by, I believe, 145 runs, which is no small amount. So, Ashwin, let me ask you first. Regarding the team selection, there's a lot of controversy going on, and there are a lot of things we need to discuss. But I just want to get your thoughts up front about that.
Yeah, look, I think it's easy for hindsight to be 2020. I think we've talked about this on the show before. There's been a lot of people who look back after a loss and say, of course, the team selection was horrendous, etc. I do not fundamentally discredit, if we talk about the bowling for a minute, I do not fundamentally discredit Kohli for the idea that he said maybe four seamers is right on this wicket. But historically, when they played at the Waka, four seamers has been correct. We won a test, our only test we won in Johannesburg or in South Africa this year, the only one we won was with four seamers and no spin option. So I understand where they came from. Having said that, I think my quick reaction before we get into more detail is India got too involved in the mind games. The Aussies were talking about a spicy track, and they showed a picture of grass before they had even cut it. Nobody ever posts a picture of a pitch with grass before it's even been cut. So they managed to get in our heads a little bit, and I think Shastri and Kohli fell for that. And then Lyon came on and was the best bowler in the match. So disappointing from that perspective, but I think it's easy to look back and criticize on team selection versus having done that before the match.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. That's exactly what my take on this is as well, that they just kind of put up all these pictures of a green wicket, spoke totally about that for 5 days, and suddenly you have Kohli and Shastri falling for it. DJ, let me ask you, I know Ashwin was not fit, but even when you had Anil Kumble, Murli Tharan, Shane Warne, whether it's Nathan Lyon, do you ever go into a test match without a spinner?
I mean, India have done that 3 times in their test history, right? One of them under Kohli at Johannesburg, and that turned out quite well. My problem wasn't actually not playing a spinner. I know there was a lot of chat about the grass on the wicket, and maybe they did us in a little bit with that. But it was the choice of the fourth seamer. I know, Ashwin, you're a big fan of Umesh, but didn't you guys find that the choice of the seamer was a bit odd with Umesh Yadav? I know he's taken wickets in the past, but I mean, wouldn't Bhuvaneshwar have been the more natural choice given our tail was so long and Bhuvaneshwar can bat pretty well? Varun, I don't know. What do you think?
I think if the man bun was there, I think it would have been different.
Didn't we do this assessment at some point? Like Umesh with man bun took 4 wickets in every game of the IPL, and Umesh without took almost none. It's a great analysis.
Is it the man bun or the hairband?
No, hairband is called, dude.
Doesn't Umesh also have a hairband?
I'm sure he owns one.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Okay.
We must be brothers.
Okay. But no, DJ, I totally agree. I think it was such a ridiculous pick. And Ashwin, you answer what DJ was saying. But I think the other thing I wanted to just add on is suddenly you've got a team with 4 number 11 batsmen. How does that work?
Yeah, so I agree. I think from a batting standpoint, it's a ridiculous pick. I think from a bowling standpoint, there must be a reason, right? Unless obviously there's some politics that we don't know about and Bhuvi has fallen out of favor. I mean, Umesh must have been hitting the deck pretty hard in the net. So there's got to be a reason for that. So again, I would like to give benefit of the doubt, but honestly, having been watching Kohli and Shastri for the last year and a half, I should probably know better. But anyway, we can only hope we fix it. But I do agree it's not acceptable to have 4 number 11 batsmen in a world where, I mean, the Australians added 150 runs or so for the last 4 wickets, and we added 4. Right? So it's just, there's no comparison.
Yeah, agree. I mean, to me, it's really ridiculous. And you mentioned a good point. Has Bhuvi fallen out of favor? Because we know this Kohli-Shastri combination, you kind of have to suck up to them. You have to make sure that you're in their good books. I mean, Pujara has been dropped. Rahane has been dropped. So it's really, for me, a little bit scary. But DJ, let's talk through a little bit about the difference. Like, for me, what was very interesting over the last 24 hours has been the first time I've seen Kohli and Shastri not aligned, right? Kohli during the test match comes out and says, there was not even a moment when we thought of playing a spinner. This was the only team that we wanted to go with. And just today, if I remember correctly, just today, Shastri has actually come out and said, actually, Jadeja wasn't 100% fit, and that's why we couldn't pick him. Any thoughts on that?
It seems clearly a case of quite confused thinking. I think Shami, after the test match as well, said we should have played a spinner. Kohli said that we were never going to play a spinner. Shastri now says if Ashwin was fit, we would have played him. Now, Jadeja had come to Australia carrying a niggle, but he spent like 150 overs in the field as a substitute. Where is he carrying that niggle if he has to throw the ball in on those massive Australian grounds? I think the media may have got to Ravi Shastri a little bit. There's been quite a lot of criticism that's come from people like Gavaskar, people like Bishan Singh Bedi, not only about Kohli but also about Shastri. And I think he's reacted to that, and in some ways he's actually made it worse than what it was by kind of muddling up things. There isn't any clear stream of thought, which is quite worrying in some ways for Indian cricket. So I guess we just need to wait and see. It's all very mysterious who's injured, who's not, whether they were dropped for injury or whether they're dropped on form, and no one really knows what's going on. So that I think is a little worrying.
Yeah, and actually to me, that's where I don't agree with either of the two, right? Kohli or Shastri, but at least I like Kohli where he backs himself and says, this is what it was. This is what the plan was. Now, for Kohli to come out just because Gavaskar is making a few comments, I mean, who the hell is Gavaskar for Shastri to get upset about and have to react? So, you're right. You're absolutely right. Shastri kind of has made it worse. Now you've got Bhogle and all also questioning on Twitter saying, what was the whole point? And if somebody's fielded over 100 overs, wouldn't it have been just easier if he bowled 20 overs and didn't field much? Like, the whole thing is a bit of a mystery.
But it's also not the first time, right, that this has happened. It happened at Lords. Remember when Kuldeep played randomly on a grassy wicket?
Yeah.
So the Shastri-Kohli combination seems to come up with some pretty strange kind of left field picks. Kohli's picked Karan Sharma in the past. Ashwin has been picked when he's not fully fit at Southampton. So, I mean, it's not the first time it's happened. Bhuvi's been dropped after being our best player at Cape Town. He was dropped for the second test. So, and then he comes back in the third test. And Rahane, as you said, has been dropped. Pujara has been dropped. So, no one really knows what's happening. It's all a bit in flux. And that's the worrying bit about it. And nobody understands why the selections are being made, whether it's injury or form or otherwise.
Yep, and you're right. And for all our listeners, there's a great article on Cricinfo by Siddharth Monga called Who Removed My Spinner? And when you read that article in one go, you just realize how embarrassing this whole, selection debacle has been, right? And the worst for me is in Sydney 2014, they dropped Pujara, who had just helped India draw a test match, and play an out-of-form Suresh Raina. Like, for me, it's just unbelievable. So yeah, for all the listeners, do have a read if you get a chance on that article. But anyway, let's move on. Ashwin, talk to us a little bit about the Kohli catch. I mean, we all predicted Kohli is going to score some big hundreds. I think he did very well. As he himself said, he let his back do the talking, although I think he did a lot of talking on the field as well. But what about that catch? Does that bring back really bad memories of watching Ganguly edge it to Michael Clarke in slip?
Yeah, I mean, I want to first make sure I acknowledge that you were unhappy about Raina getting selected in the field. That's a pretty big one. I never thought I'd say that. I never thought I'd hear you say that. But anyway, just back to Kohli's catch, to your question in particular. I think Kohli, look, it definitely brought back memories, but I think it's acceptable. I was reading a statistic that said, for all that Kohli plays and misses against the seamers, he very, very rarely edges it to the keeper. But he does tend to edge it to the slips, and we've seen this before. I mean, I remember noticing in England last year, he loves to guide the ball down to the third man, and so that does mean there's risk he gets caught in the gully region or at a wide slip. It was disappointing to see him get out that way, but obviously all the controversy was around the catch and the cleanliness of the catch being taken. So I'm not sure if you want to talk about that now or we want to move to that later.
Yeah, no, let's talk about it now.
Look, I've said this, I think, before on the show, and one of the assessments I read early on when this happened, I think it happened something similar in one of our previous series earlier in the year, is it is fairly easy to take pictures from a certain angle and make it look like the ball's touching the ground, and take the same kind of pictures from a different angle and it make it look like the ball's clearly not touching the ground. And that's because you're taking a 3D moment, right, with three different dimensions and trying to capture it in a 2D picture. And so you can make it look like whatever you want. I don't personally, in that case, think it was out, but I know that I have a hard time taking away my inherent bias that I didn't want Kohli to be out. So I think it's unfortunate. I think there's a bigger conversation to be had about the role of a soft signal on the field. I don't think it adds any value. And so from that perspective, the frustrating piece is the soft signal just ends up being the final signal because there isn't enough conclusive evidence to overturn. But I don't know if there was in this case, and I think cricket probably more fundamentally, cricket has grown over the years with the DRS. They probably need to take a long look at the role of the soft signal, and hopefully we come out better for it in the future.
Fair enough. DJ, talk to us about the expert opinions from Ricky Ponting, one of the most honest men the game of cricket has seen. And, a lot of people say Indians really hate Ponting because of how good he was, and he's just so brilliant. For me, I just hate Ponting because of that one incident where he just kind of told the umpire, "I'm saying it's out." Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously referring to Sydney 2008, the infamous match, which I think we'll come back to later in the show. But I think you guys know I've been really angry this week, and it's not because Kohli was given out or the soft signal or whatever else. It's actually because of the reaction of these so-called experts, where Ed Cowan came out, I think, on ABC Grandstand and said that was 100% fair catch and no question about it. And he's taken that cleanly. Kohli shouldn't make a big deal about it. He should walk off and all of that stuff. And I'm just like, at best, that's a 50-50 call, right? Now, where are you getting this? It's completely out and I can see it and there's no question about it. I don't know where that was coming from. And then our main man, Ricky Ponting, the clean catch expert, as we saw back in Sydney in 2008, in that infamous test match, comes out and says, "No doubt that's a clean catch." And I'm just like, where are you guys getting this stuff from? And I just found it shocking, really. I mean, the partisanship in which the commentators and experts in Australia kind of comment on the game, I find it amazing. One of the things that Richie Benaud, the greatest commentator probably Channel 9 ever had, in Australia ever had, and maybe world cricket ever had, he said that there are no teams called we, right? And it's something that the Australian commentators routinely flout. They call them, and they are professionals, they are supposed to be neutral, but they can't get out of the fact that they are Australian and they used to play for Australia. And so they routinely call it we, and the commentary is completely biased in that direction. And I found that I got very riled up by that the catch was claimed to be clearly out, and it was implying that Kohli was cheating. Every single batsman in the world has the right to stand his ground if he thinks the catch has not been taken cleanly. Yes, Kohli was unhappy. Yes, it was a turning point in the match. India were about 75 runs behind with, I think we still had 4 wickets or 5 wickets still standing. And that it was a massive point in the match, and Kohli was entitled to be disappointed. He didn't show dissent. He walked off when the umpire gave the decision. So for Cowan to come out and say that was, I found that quite amazing. And for Ricky Ponting, I mean, with his record of on-field behavior, I'm sorry, he's not going to be someone I trust to call a catch like that.
Absolutely. Ashwin, talking a little bit more about the Kohli point, right? A lot of people have spoken about his behavior on the field, his behavior off the field. You've had Mike Hussey, Mitch Johnson comment on it. Then you've had Alan Border come and defend him. What are your thoughts on this entire issue? And I just want to add one thing from my perspective. Like, I'm okay with his aggression on the field. For me, I just wish somebody close to Kohli could tell him that your legacy is going to be built because of your leadership, not because you're going to cross 100 hundreds or cross 30,000-40,000 runs. Like, somebody that's my perspective. And I don't have a problem with his aggression, but I have a major problem with his captaincy. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I've said that before on this show as well. I think that nobody doubts Kohli the batsman. I think Kohli has to prove himself a little bit more as a leader. But I think if you come to the point a little bit about his on-field behavior, I think, look, if you respect Kohli as a leader and think, basically if you respect Kohli as a leader because you think he's this icon that your children are going to look up to and become this moral standard for the kids of the nation and the world, or he's that Rahul Dravid, he's going to evolve into, as he ages, into that Rahul Dravid type character. He's not. right? And some of the names of people we've been mentioning before is like Ricky Pontings and Alan Borders. They never matured, even into their early to mid 30s, even right at the end of their playing career. What drove them was the fire, that aggression, that passion for the game, and that's what fuels Kohli. So I think being the Indian team cricket captain, it might be one of the hardest jobs in the world, right? You are constantly scrutinized, even on this show. I mean, we get together once a week and talk, and a large chunk of our conversations end up being about Kohli. So it's a tough job. I think he handles it to the best of his ability, and I think he needs that passion, that fire, that aggression. If Kohli becomes this timid, calm guy who doesn't celebrate dismissals, doesn't run and jump and high five somebody and shout curse words in the air, then he won't be the batsman that we know either. And so I think people are just a little bit naive. That for some reason they expect him to be like a Kumble or a Dravid, and he's just not. He's a different guy, and we have to love him for that. Now, I think that's a separate conversation to talk about his tactics as a leader, which I know you said you think leaves a lot to be desired, and I agree with that. But I think we're just being naive if we think he's going to become this nice, calm, mature guy, because he's not, and that's why he's the player he is.
Yep, and I agree. And I don't think we need him to become. I mean, you rightly pointed out Ricky Ponting, Alan Border, nobody changed, right? So, like I said, I'm okay with his behavior. But DJ, can you imagine a day where Kohli is in the playing 11 and not captain?
I don't think we're going to see that. Who's going to captain Virat Kohli? I don't think there's anyone who's got enough character in this team to be able to do it.
But doesn't that scare you? Because we've seen Dravid, Ganguly, Tendulkar and Dhoni all having the ability to be captained by somebody else. But for me, it's just, I feel sick in the stomach when I think of it, that I can't imagine somebody else captaining Virat Kohli. And that's that'll be a very sad thing for Indian cricket.
I mean, I don't think it's such a problem, him captaining the team. I think he needs to grow as a captain, improve as a captain tactically, and that will come with more time in the job. I mean, he's been doing the job now for 3-4 years, yes. But what he doesn't have is a tactician by his side. He's got as we've said before on the show, he's got a bit of a cheerleader, right? In Ravi Shastri, who's all gung-ho, and they're all kind of buds, and they all get along, and they have fun, and they play good cricket, aggressive cricket. But he needs a good tactician, and he had that in Kumble. They didn't get along, unfortunately. What the board needs to do is to find him another person he gets along with, respects, and is able to kind of give him tactics. Come to think of it, if you think about it, Ponting was not a great captain either. And I think I said this on Twitter earlier in the week. Kohli is basically Ponting 2.0. He's vegan, he's a teetotaler, and he can score runs on turning tracks. He's basically Ponting with a beard. And he's grown up watching a successful team led by Ponting. And Ponting was not a great captain. He just had great resources at his disposal. He had Gilchrist, Hayden, Langer, Vaughan, McGrath, Gillespie, Lee. I mean, these are all great players in their own right. So Ponting kind of had a fantastic team handed to him. He didn't really have to do very much as a captain. Unfortunately, Kohli doesn't have the same luxury. So he needs to learn how to use his resources well. He's using his bowlers very well now, right? He needs to find out how to get the best out of his batsmen.
Fair enough, yeah. And I think it's a fair comment. I don't think that this is going to be a problem that is in the near future, but I think it will be a problem in 5 to 6 years from now. But especially as you see the Shaws of the world coming up who have been captains. But it'll be an interesting debate. So moving on, guys, we had two very big fights this week, and first I'm going to talk about the bigger one, right, which is huge. It was actually an infighting within the Indian team of Ishant Sharma and Ravindra Jadeja. And I think there was a lot of pointing. There were bamboo terms being used. Ashwin, did you get to see that video?
I did not, unfortunately. I mean, I saw bits and pieces of the clips. I think it's bizarre, and I mostly enjoyed the choice of insult because that's pretty funny. But DJ, maybe I'll let you talk about that one a bit more because I didn't see the video in its entirety.
Apparently, the host broadcaster didn't release all the audio to it, so there was a translation released to select journalists and things, and basically there was quite a lot of take your anger and shove it up where and all of this stuff. And I don't know what kind of kicked it off. Apparently it was where Jadeja was drifting out of his fielding position, and Ishant had something to say about that. And Jadeja, I think, has generally been pissed because he hasn't played, and he's, as I said, fielded about 200 overs in the series already.
The other thing for me is, sorry DJ, but I think Jadeja just to piss him off, man. Like even Cook wanted to slap him. I think Anderson wanted to slap him. Now his own teammate wants to like tell him to shove it up somewhere. Like seriously, man, you're on as a 12th man. Your shoulder is hurting. Why don't you just stand where the bowler is asking you to stand? He just too irritating to me. Anyway, I really don't like Jadeja, so Ashwin, I'm not going to ask you to follow up with questions on that.
Yeah, it's not been a good day for players I've generally supported, right? From Jadeja to Umesh, it's generally not been a great week. So hopefully there's some redemption coming soon.
But apparently Jadeja is in line to play the Boxing Day test, even if he's 80% fit. So maybe we'll see part 2 of Ishant versus Jadeja. I mean, it's a bit of a strange one. I mean, if Ishant just decides, he's just going to he'll just beat him to a pulp. I don't know why he's taking Panga with him. Odd.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, moving on to the more kind of talked about fight, Kohli versus Payne. There were lots of things being said. There was almost either a chest bump or a collision. I mean, I thought it was pretty close to a chest bump, like a happy one. There was a collision. There were some names being called. Murli Vijay got asked some questions. DJ, why don't you go? Why don't you take this section?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I mean, the classic Australian abuse, big head. That is what Virat Kohli was called by Tim Payne. And I think Tim Payne should be banned for being a PG-13 banter kind of guy. He's completely un-Australian. His jokes are not funny. His abuse is not even abuse. And so basically the first thing that happened was, I mean, I think Kohli kind of got under the Australian skin a little bit. He told Tim Payne, oh, if he messes it up here, it's 2-0 boys, it's 2-0 boys. And Tim Payne was like, oh, you've got to bat first, big head, which was definitely the word used.
Yeah.
Because all Australians use the word big head since the beginning of time. And so that started it off. Then there was a little bit of a collision, and then he's telling him to keep his cool and all of that stuff. And funnily enough, Tim Payne is completely silent while Virat Kohli is batting. It's only after Kohli gets out and is sitting in the pavilion and Murli Vijay is batting that he asks Murli Vijay, I know he's your captain, but you can't like him as a bloke.
You can't seriously like him as a bloke.
Yeah, and so that apparently is the wittiest thing ever said by an Australian. But you can understand why, right? I mean, every time Australians have tried to be funny, it's kind of backfired on them. Like Glenn McGrath asks Ed O'Brandy's why he's so fat, and we all know how that was answered. Then Glenn McGrath again asks Ram Naresh Sarwan, what does Brian Lara's taste like? And he's like, why don't you go ask your wife? So it's always kind of backfired on them. And I think this time Murli Vijay was just like, whatevs, man. I can't be bothered. Kohli's sitting in the pavilion. He's already out. Tim Payne is still thinking about Kohli. I mean, are you kidding me? And so this is the new classy PG-13 banter Australia, which, to be fair, for Kohli to have brought that out is a big move. And I think it's going to pay dividends in the long run.
Yep, and I kind of think it was a great move from Kohli, right? Because they've talked about being honest and playing the game and not sledging. Then they've been called up for being soft, which we spoke about in the last episode. And Kohli basically is just said, I'm going to get these guys to talk come what may, right? And it kind of worked, but except that I really don't know what Tim Payne was saying. And I just kind of wish Murli Vijay had turned around and said, well, what do you think of Steve Smith as a bloke or David Warner as a bloke?
But that's what Kohli said, right? Apparently, allegedly, Kohli told Tim Payne, you're just a stand-in captain and I'm the best player in the world. So
yeah, that's good.
Both true.
Yeah, that's
both true because of Steve Smith being missing.
So interesting. But anyway, talking about these kind of fights, it's been 10 years since Monkey Gate. I didn't get to watch that episode, but I'm just going to take a quick vote and not go into too much discussion. Ashwin, did he say monkey or did he say Maki?
He said Maki.
DJ?
Definitely Maki. But you would have been like, Ski Maki.
Are you crazy? For me, he definitely said monkey. He definitely said monkey. And he had no idea that it was such a bad thing to say.
Till 2003, Bhajji was giving interviews in 2001. He was giving interviews in Hindi.
Yeah, but he knows.
You think he's gone that far to understand that monkey is a racial slur in Australia?
So here's my take on it is he knew that monkey is somehow bad for Symonds. I think he didn't realize the extent of that it's a racial slur. And he said monkey, and then when he figured out what it means, I think he panicked.
But if that's the case, it is the single best defense. I mean, DJ, you're a lawyer. This is the single best defense in the history of time, because you came up with a word that sounds like it's the exact same. Like if it's somebody caught you on video doing it, the lip sync could look the exact same. It's just perfect.
Yeah, we've seen this recently, right? Like you've seen Jeremy Corbyn say allegedly stupid woman and it became stupid people. Tim Payne said the word big head. So yeah, I mean, but Markey is just genius. Whoever's come up with Markey is just a genius.
It is pure genius, and it's in fact. But like if you were Bhajji's mom, like would you be celebrating at the end of the trial that yes, my son said Marky, not monkey? Like I don't know whether you should celebrate or not.
Dude, Bhajji's Punjabi. He's not like, at least he's not finished that whole sentence. He's just like stopped.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I give Bhajji credit for not using it as a racial slur, but I totally believe it said monkey. But yeah, the darkest day is that the greatest Indian batsman of all time came to defend him, and I think that's where Symonds in the interview for the first time says that that's when I realized the power of money and politics in cricket. He said, till then, I was just going around playing the game, having some fun. And it is after that day, and referred to this particular person, that he realized what cricket actually is about, and he went into depression and he started drinking. And so interesting. I do definitely want to watch that. I think it's on Cricket 360. I will try to find a way to watch it, but you guys should as well.
But Bhajji's come out and completely denied this, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't expect Bhajji to do anything better than that.
True, but Bhajji's just been like 10 years ago, he tried to tell a story. Now he's trying to sell a story. Where is he getting this stuff from? When did I break down and cry? I mean, it's a bit of an odd time for it to come out as well, right? 10 years on. That Bhajji came and apologized to me. I mean, Symonds again, like people like Gavaskar is trying to be relevant, boss. He's completely forgotten. No one remembers him for anything now.
Yeah, I don't doubt that Symonds is trying to be relevant and get some PR out of that. I don't doubt that at all. But again, like I can totally imagine Bhajji apologizing during a Mumbai Indians thing. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's been 10 years. Let's just hope this doesn't happen again.
Let's just make it large.
Let's just make it loud.
Can I quickly interject with a fun fact? If anybody, I think I've mentioned this before. There's a show on Hotstar called Breakfast with Champions, and they do an episode with Yuzvendra Chahal, and apparently Chahal and Symonds are like best buddies.
What?
Like Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, they're on WhatsApp with each other. But this is real. Like Symonds' wife will send Chahal WhatsApps and forwards and stuff. Every time he goes to Australia, he's visiting him through the IPL. They were buddies, and for me, it's the most random friendship. Maybe it is like Laurel and Hardy.
No, the most random one is Jason Holder and Kuldeep Yadav. They have a picture like hugging each other in the swimming pool. It is extremely disturbing. I'll find it and send it to you guys. It's so disturbing.
Symonds is just crazy. Like Chahal looks like he'd be doing poncha at Symonds' house or something. Like what? How are they friends and sending each other WhatsApps?
But not just friends, but Chahal is sending WhatsApps to Symonds' wife. Like they're that close. So anyway, let's keep moving.
Dude, Vijay and Karthik, careful. Chahal's gonna get beaten up, bro. Big time.
Anyway, on that note, we'll be back after a quick break. So we're back. We had a great discussion around the Perth test. I think we are 3 days away from the iconic Boxing Day test. The last memory we have of the Boxing Day test between India and Australia was, I would say, a pretty good one from India's perspective. It was dull because it was a draw, but Virat Kohli hit 169, Ajinkya Rahane hit 147, and this is on the back of Australia batting first and scoring 530 all in their first innings, 318 the second innings. So to me, I think, yes, it was a dull game, but DJ, what are you expecting in the Boxing Day test?
Well, the first thing is what the pitch is going to be, right? So there's a lot of chat after the Perth test. Pitch was rated average and people were not happy with that because apparently it produced great cricket and the MCG is looking to become more like the Perth wicket. And now the issue with that is last year, I think it was rated poor because the Ashes test match there, I think it was a dull draw, and Alistair Cook, or should I call him Sir Alistair Cook, scored 244, and basically not very much happened. So people were very unhappy with that test. And so a number of the last few games have been draws. So they're looking to spice up the MCG wicket. So that is going to be the first point of interest, right? Everybody, apparently there's grass on the wicket. Marcus Harris has come out and said it's his home ground, so he's come out and said, don't be fooled by the grass on the wicket. It's going to be a good batting track and all of that stuff. So that is going to be very interesting. And will India be able to read the pitch properly this time and play the right team? And that's going to be the biggest point of interest for me, really.
And so, Ashwin, let's talk a little bit about the selection. So, here's the details that we know, right? Shaw is out of the series, which is so disappointing. It's unbelievable. It was just too disappointing to handle. But Shaw is out of the series. Mayank Agarwal has been flown back in. Vijay and Rahul are still practicing in the nets ahead of Agarwal. Shastri has said Agarwal they'll take a call on Mayank Agarwal on Monday. Meantime, Ashwin and Jadeja seem to have niggles or slight injury issues. Pandya is back, but we're not sure if he's back fit or if he's just there to kind of take these big group selfies at Yara Park for the Indian Summer Festival. What is the team going to look like?
That's the biggest question of the week, I think. So it's very, very tough, right? I think if you're thinking about the top order, look, we've talked about this before. Our 3, 4, 5 are pretty set, right? I don't think you're going to mess with Pujara, Kohli, and Rahane. Although I think there are people talking about pushing Pujara up the order to give a slot to an extra lower order batsman. I don't personally agree with that. I would not touch 3, 4, 5. So then your question becomes, who are your openers? And for me, I think between Vijay and Rahul, they've both looked pretty unfortunate this whole series. I would, and I don't think you guys will agree with this, but I would finally rest Rahul, bring in a Mayank, assuming he's fit and can play. I mean, like you said, I would have brought in Shaw, but can't play, so that's fine. I would bring in a Mayank, but I would continue with Vijay just because of the experience and his history of performance in Australia. I would give him one more test, but I would play Mayank up at the top of the order. I think lower down, I would be very disappointed to see Vihari go. He had an incredible test as far as I see it. Look, he's still new to the game. He couldn't save the match at the end, but to me, he looked like a pure test batsman who's here for the long haul, and I think the fact that he can bowl a few overs helps. And then just quickly for me on the bowlers, I definitely think you go back to 3 quicks and 1 spinner, assuming you can find a fit spinner. I almost think a partly unfit Ashwin or Jadeja is still better than playing Umesh as your 4th quick, because it gives you an option and it allows you to mess it up. And let's not forget, the Aussie lineup is very left-hander heavy. So that's my quick take on the team. I would hate to see Vihari go, but I do think they will maintain one of the 2 openers going into Melbourne.
Yep, and I think I kind of agree with you, although what I would like to see is I'd like to see Rohit Sharma open, because I think for me it's purely because I don't want to see Vihari out. I don't think Vihari has done anything wrong, and I think Vihari is going to have to make way for either Pandya or Rohit Sharma, and I'm really not happy with that. DJ, thoughts on that?
So we've had a lot of questions on Twitter about the combination, and there are lots of people have written in with their suggested combination. So the opening slot is the biggest issue, right? The options currently are keep the same opening combination, bring in Mayank. I think Mayank for me takes one spot out of the 2, KL and Vijay. Now, who would you drop out of KL and Vijay? For me, I think, and contrary to what people believe, I think KL Rahul is one innings away from actually scoring big. He scored 100 in Australia previously. He in fact made his test debut here. And he's much younger than Vijay. Vijay is 35 years old. And he's not the future. So if you're investing in an opener and retaining an opener, for me, KL has got to play. So the openers for me are Mayank and KL. Yes, they're an inexperienced pair relatively. Vijay scored runs previously in Australia, etc., etc. But between the 2, one of them has scored 48 runs in 4 innings, and one of them has scored 49 runs in 4 innings. So between KL and Vijay, why should KL be dropped? And that is my thinking. If you're investing for the future, if you're looking ahead, KL Rahul is the future for me.
I just quickly to jump in. I think I agree with the principle of what you're saying, but I say you invest for the future while balancing out experience. And to me, your opening slot, you're investing for the future, is going to be Shaw, and when he's back from fitness, and maybe it'll be a Mayank. So I think KL, had his chance. He's played more than 35 tests, I think, now. And as much as I love him as an ODI and T20 batsman, I think you got to balance the investment for the future with stability. And that's why Pujara and Rahane are so critical, because arguably Pujara is not a great investment for the future either. But he's he's so critical to that lineup. So anyway, that was just why I had a different point of view to you.
No, and I disagree. I can't disagree with DJ more. I think KL Rahul is done, man. I sent you both some pictures of his last 9 innings and how he got bowled. It's just horrific. I think Karnataka Bank needs to give him a job. He needs to sit at a desk and just grind it out, man. Learn Excel, PowerPoint, numbers, whatever needs to be done. KL Rahul for me is done. And I don't care if he hits 150 or a big daddy 100. It's not good enough to hit one every 10 matches.
You remember, this is the guy that Viv Richards was going on about in the West Indies, right? And if King Viv thinks he's a decent player, I wouldn't bet against him. But I see where you're coming from. I understand the frustration with Rahul, and I'm equally frustrated with him. In fact, sometimes we call him KLPD and blah, 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 whatever else, right? And it's because he looks pretty when he's in and when he's batting well. And I can understand the frustration, and I'm equally frustrated with him. But for us to discard a 20-something-year-old for a 35-year-old who's completely at the end of his career, hasn't done anything great after coming back into the team, after being dropped from England, why will we go back? It's a backward step playing Vijay. Or you drop both of them and play Rohit. I mean, which is not a step for the future either. But I mean, he's going to be better, right? That's the logic.
Why not? Rohit Sharma can, if opening works out, he can open for the next 2 to 3 years easily, and that's what you try to solve for. So I think, I agree. I think you should drop both, more KL Rahul than Vijay, but I agree. I think we should drop Vijay as well and open with Rohit, and then let Rohit, Mayank, and maybe Shaw compete. But Shaw is going to be there. So
yeah, I can live with Rohit opening. Actually, I mean, I've told you guys before in the last couple of shows, I can actually live with Rohit opening because it's literally the only place we haven't tried him out. So why not?
Yeah, agree. Yeah, and Ashwin, what's the take on Pandya? You think he's going to play?
I think there's a little bit of a risk he's going to play, but I do not think he should. I don't think he slots into this lineup. I think if you have an Ashwin batting at 8, I think that's a lot more solid than having, just bolstering the batting. And I don't think Pandya makes it into the team as an out-and-out bowler. I think he will in the future. I just don't think in this series in Australia. Look, I would not drop any one of Bumrah, Ishant or Shami. So for me, those, assuming fitness is not a concern, etc., for me, those 3 seamer spots are nailed down. Then I would play Ashwin as your 4th bowler, assuming he's fit. And I don't think Pandya slots into the side.
So what happens if Ashwin and Jadeja are both unfit? Do we play Kuldeep or do we play Pandya then?
Yes, you play Kuldeep any day.
Ashwin?
I 100% agree. Look, I think we've learned our lesson about Australia's not England, Australia's not South Africa. In Australia, even the spiciest of wickets, maybe other than in Brisbane, but maybe even the spiciest of wickets. Look at Nathan Lyon. Look at what he's done, not just in this series, but in the past 10 years of his career. Look, I mean, it's the home of Shane Warne. This is a country that creates great spinners. And so I think we've learned our lesson from this Masters. You have to have one full-time spinner in the side. I think Ashwin and Jadeja both edge out Kuldeep just because of their batting, and they offer a batting option. But I think if they're both absent, you still play Kuldeep, and then you accept that you have 4 number 11s in the side.
Yep, and for me, I think where India becomes a game-changing test country or a test team is when Hardik Pandya can become our 3rd seamer. So if I was Hardik Pandya, I would be working actively to say, how do I kick one of the existing 3 seamers out, become that seamer, and then have a situation where at number 8 or number 9, Hardik Pandya is walking into bat. That for me is game-changing.
Yeah, basically the Sam Curran role for England, right? That's what you're thinking of, where he takes wickets as well as contributes with the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's great. The last point I want to make is, I get a lot of flack from a lot of my friends about supporting Rishabh Pant. I think his 230s in this test match were a little scrappy, but I mean, I can't blame the guy for anything, right? He's batting with 4 number 11 batsmen the other end. He is going to get out to Lyon. He does need a lot more time. He needs a lot more maturity. But do you guys see any merit in kicking Rishabh Pant out at the end of the series and bringing back Saha, Ashwin?
I don't. I think, in this case, I guess I got DJ's point a little bit about investing for the future. I think you give him all 4 tests. At the end of the series, maybe you evaluate, does this guy need some more time in the Ranji Trophy? I think the unfortunate truth is he's one of the players who has played a little bit of Ranji Trophy, then skyrocketed into IPL, and then made his way to the limited overs team, and now playing Test. So maybe you make the assessment at the end of the series that he needs a little bit more time keeping against tough fast bowlers on bouncy wickets or against the ball that's spinning a lot in the Ranji Trophy, and then you bring him back. But I think if you're investing in him for the future, let's keep investing. And I agree with your point on the batting. You don't blame him for the batting. I think if your top six aren't doing the job and you're consistently 10 for 2, then you got to look more inwards at your specialist batsman and keep grooming your keeper.
Yep, and if I was Rishabh Pant, I mean, for the next 5 years, there's no keeper on the horizon, man. Like, I would train hard. I would just keep my head down. If I was Kohli, I would tell him that, we are investing in you. But there's nobody else really to replace him right now, especially in ODIs, T20s from next year onwards. So I think the future is promising for him. I just think we need to give him a little bit of time.
Plus, it's worth mentioning he's, seems to be really in with both Shastri and Kohli. I think he probably brings Shastri his nightly whiskies. So it'll be hard to let him go.
And I think his chat behind the stumps is very entertaining for us as well. So, in fact, the commentators say they don't need to speak much when Rishabh Pant is with.
Yeah, the Australian commentators, I think he definitely is a lot better than them anyway. So
we're looking forward to Boxing Day, 26th, one day after Christmas. It should be great. I'm sure all three of us are going to be watching every ball. And so we'll speak probably on day 4 or day 5 of that test. But I just want to come to our last section very quickly on the IPL auction. I think some interesting names have come up, some interesting price points have come up. It wasn't as exciting as previous years for me, but I think the one standout is that Yuvraj Singh has just kind of gone from being 14 crores about 4 years ago to now getting picked up by Mumbai Indians in the second or third round for only a base price of 1 crore. But the two bigger names that we had to discuss today were Unadkat and Varun Chakravarti, both I think who went for above 8 crores. DJ, any thoughts on that? I mean, we discussed Unadkat is definitely some money laundering scheme, but 2 years in a row, what has he done?
I don't know, man. I'm starting to think whether I should start bowling left arm and put some videos up. I'm telling you, this is your way into the IPL.
Seriously.
#Viva.
#Viva.
Seriously, I mean, what does this guy do? Why does he need 8.4 crores? He's got more than Sam Curran.
It's unbelievable.
I don't get it. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, and Ashwin Varun Chakravarti, have you heard anything about him? They're calling him a mystery spinner.
Yeah, so in quickly what I read, I'm not sure I'll get all the facts 100% right, but he used to play cricket as a teenager, didn't really make it very far, so went off to pursue a career in architecture, finished his undergraduate degree, I think maybe started working part-time as an architect, then started playing cricket part-time again and just continued doing well. And he basically has every delivery in the book. So mystery spinner is the right explanation. He's got everything from the leg spin to the off spin to the googly to the dusra to the carom ball. And so fairly interesting buy. I mean, there was some interesting debate as well. He's got a very, very Sunil Narayan-esque action. So it might be, he's been playing domestic, but now as he starts to play in the bigger leagues, who knows, maybe he'll be more closely scrutinized for chucking. And I'm not saying this with enough data, just from some quick reading, but I think that'll be really interesting to see. But look, to me, that's an interesting buy. You're going to play a spinner, you're going to play an Indian guy, and even if just for the first 4 or 5 games, if he does well because of the fact that nobody's recognized him, I think that's a smart buy. And that's what we've come to know and love about the IPL is the ability for these unknown players to really make it big. So happy for him, very exciting.
And if he can open the batting, nothing like it, like the Sunil Narayan 2.0.
With Chris Lynn, of course.
Well, apparently he's an all-rounder, by the way, this guy, Varun Chakravarti. And he used to be a fast bowler, and he got injured, so he started bowling spin.
Wow.
Like, I think Anil Kumble also used to be a fast bowler who started bowling spin.
Anil Kumble ended up also a fast bowler, right?
Anil Kumble was still faster than Venkatesh Prasad. Yeah.
Venki was beating everyone in the flight, including Amir Sohail.
Anil really used to, in the man of the match press conferences after Anil took his 5-4s, they used to say you extracted some good pace and bounce from the wicket.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, I think that's just a quick talk about the IPL auction. We will obviously cover it more in the new year. But yeah, like I said, we're excited about the Boxing Day test. 2 days to go, and we'll see you at next weekend. And for all our listeners, wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.